I am so glad that you've joined us today. And if we haven't met, my name is Ben Snyder, and I'm the lead pastor here at Cedar Creek. Have you ever wondered, is God trying to get my attention? Or have you just felt like maybe you're overthinking it? I mean, with all the noise and distractions and swirling thoughts, sometimes it's hard to know what's really his voice and what's just everything else. I mean, discerning God's voice from the noise of life isn't always easy, but when we learn how to do that, it changes everything. That's really what this series is all about, and why I've asked a few special guests to join us to share their own experience in discerning God's voice from the noise. You're going to hear real stories and honest lessons about what God is teaching them and how he's been working in their life specifically.
Well, welcome. Good morning to everyone who is watching us at home, online, all of the above. So Ben mentioned it is Campus Pastor Weekend. I thought I would invite some friends to join me here for our message. So we've got Seth Oswald, the South Toledo Campus Pastor. Everyone give it up for Seth. We have emoji hand claps or hallelujah hands that our friends at home are using right here. So Seth, thank you for joining me, Brian Dario, online pastor, and to our left, we have Andy Rectenwald, Oregon Campus Pastor.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thanks, Brian.
I'm glad that you guys are here. You will notice, so I forgot to give them an alert on outfits to wear. As you can see from the background, it's lighter, right? So
Seth wore a purple shirt.
You're looking great.
This is blue. It's a blue shirt, actually, but on
So-
camera it looks purple.
It looks great. It looks great.
Thanks.
Andy, on the other hand, he's blending right on in with the background. So I don't know if you can see.
Skin.
Oh gosh, I heard you got some sun though.
I did. I was out working in the yard for a long time this last week.
Long time. Well, you look great. Mustache looks great. I'm glad you guys are here. This will be fun.
Thanks for having us, Brian.
To do this.
Excited.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
It is exciting, and we're talking about noise. So we're in the series, What is God Teaching Me? And today, we're talking about how to quiet the noise. So let's start off with a fun question. Is there a noise that drives you absolutely crazy? We'll start with Seth.
I'll go first. That's fine. That's great. Yeah, there is, actually. I had a time where I had to think about this because there's not many things that, I don't want to say that don't drive me crazy. They do. I'm human. But noise-wise, I'm not. Now, if you ask my wife, she has a whole list of things. And for me, I was like, man, I really got to think about this. And so we have a dog at home. She's an Australian Shepherd. Her name's Bailey. She's a great dog. Love her, by the way. Incredible dog. Best dog ever. When it gets when a storm comes in, or wind or rain of any sort, she's a very anxious dog. She will pant, like aggressively pant, drool, and her panting noise, even though she's in distress, it drives me nuts.
Okay.
And so that's the noise that I had to think of. And I love her all together and to death, and I want to help her. And I don't like that she's anxious, but her panting just drives me off a wall.
So what do you do? Do you walk away and just until the storm's over? Do you try to soothe her? What's going on?
So the beautiful thing is, don't put her outside. just let her fold and melt. Yeah, no, she. So the good thing is I have 3 boys at home, 3 kids, small kids, and the reason why it's a good thing. Do you know why it's a good thing?
Because they will entertain the dog. No, I don't. I have 2 kids, so I don't know.
That's a great solution too.
Thanks.
But the thing is, being small, they have sound machines. And so I will pull out, and I have 3 to choose from. So I'll pull out a sound machine, and I will put it in the room wherever I'm at, or because I think it's a noise that bothers me so much. So wherever I put her in the house, I think I can hear it.
Yeah.
So to drown the noise out, I turn the sound machine.
Makes
on.
sense.
To hear a fake rain when there's actually
when there's
rain
a real storm
going
happening
on outside. So
that's hilarious.
That's it. That's what we do.
Well, thank you, Seth. Andy, is there a noise that just drives you absolutely crazy?
There's a few. Yeah. Crying is one. Not a fan, but I'm not going to talk about that one.
Sad crying?
It's just any kind of crying. I don't like it. I cry too. I'm a human being, but I just get uncomfortable when people cry. And it's fine. They're allowed to. I don't try to stop them. I kind of do. I'm like, you should chill. But the one I wanted to talk about is loud chewing, because that's offensive. Crying is a natural part of the human body and emotional stuff.
Jesus wept.
Right, but it never says that Jesus chewed like a cow auditioning for Jurassic Park. And some people can't help themselves. And I can confess this here. I get angry, and I get I want to choke people when it happens. I can't stand it. I can't stand the loud, and they just do it. And so what do I do to quiet it? I either turn on music in the background, or I start to try and talk to them a lot because I'm so sick and tired of listening to them, or I finish my food very fast and walk away because I get angry. It irritates me.
You're done.
Yeah.
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 That's good.
So at home,
Even thinking about it right now, I'm pretty angry.
oh gosh. I'm just thinking if your wife is crying while also eating.
She
what-
chews with her mouth closed because she's
That's
a
good.
respectable human.
Thank you.
Okay, that was a little bit much.
Whoops.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. We'll edit that out. It's fine. By the way, this is a recorded message. Okay, so we're fine here. Okay, so you also have lots of kids in your homes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would imagine, like, what's the noise level
High.
at home? High.
High all the time,
All
unless
the
it's
time.
unless they're in bed and they're sleeping.
But even then, because we're talking young kids for
Yeah.
both of you.
Yep. 1, 2, 8, and 10.
Oh my.
We have 4, 3, and a 3-week-old.
Congratulations.
So yeah.
By
Yeah,
the way.
congrats.
That's really
I know I never
Thanks.
told you, but congratulations.
Oh, I appreciate that.
I did tell you that.
Thanks. That's great.
That's wonderful. Thank you. So do you have to use a sound machine with the 3-week-old, or you're like, we have to keep it off because
No, we use the sound machine. Yeah, we've been consistent with all 3 kids. That's
sound
great.
machines,
That's
they're
cool.
beautiful.
They are a beautiful thing.
They are
They
great.
truly,
Yeah, they are.
truly are.
If you use a sound machine, we want to know in the chat. Go ahead, put it in the chat. And what setting do you have it at? Because we have fake rain. You've got fake rain.
Got the fake rain.
Okay.
Yep.
Same.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star. That's Parker's favorite.
Oh, you
Yeah.
do music.
Yep.
That's interesting.
It's just
a good
over
one.
and over all night. It's twinkle, twinkle. It's kind of creepy, but he likes it, so.
Or it's ABCs,
works.
by the way.
It's twinkle, twinkle.
ABC.
Yeah, I know it's the same. I
Okay.
get it.
Ah, it's the same tune? That is
Yeah.
the same tune. Wow, I just
Boom.
connected that.
By the
Did you?
way.
No idea.
Thanks, Brian.
You're welcome. So we're talking physical, literal noise, but noise can also be emotional,
Yeah.
mental, spiritual noise that gets in the way for us. So how would you describe the noise in your life right now? All of that noise.
What do you think, Andy?
Yeah, I was thinking about this question. What other than out loud noises, things that distract me, things that kind of fill up my life that maybe are unnecessary, or at least you want to deal with them or else you're too distracted, whatever. And a big one for me, and I've had this for a while, is I like to have people like me. Like I have a people pleasing, or I like to be, I like to be liked. And so that can be in and of itself noise, because it leads me to all kinds of problems sometimes. So sometimes I'm afraid to confront. Not because I'm afraid of the individual, it's just I don't want them to be upset with me. So I can be afraid to confront, and that can lead to a whole host of other issues. And so what I've had to learn is that the way I deal with that noise is to remind myself constantly, and it goes one way or the other, but it could sound one way or the other. And remind myself that God is pleased with me because of his son Jesus. And so I don't have to stress too much about what other people think unless I'm unnecessarily offending them. So that's the noise that I think that came to mind pretty quick. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think for me, I can relate for sure with Andy. I have that same exact thing. And for another area is just fears, just irrational fears that, I don't know, maybe in my brain I've convinced myself that could be true or could happen. And what that does is maybe it prevents me from acting or moving or pursuing something. It could be wherever God is potentially, I think, maybe leading me or a risk I want to take. And I can bury all of that with like the fears of, man, what could go wrong? What could happen? What about this? What about that? All these different scenarios in my life. And which then prevents me from actually like taking action. And then I just won't.
Yeah.
And so what I've learned and have grown through that is that God is much bigger than fears, whether they're real or perceived. And trusting him in the outcome, whatever that looks like, it's fully up to him, has been way beneficial in my walk and my faith and has helped me grow through those fears. And the thing is, it never goes away.
Right.
Always going to have that.
Right.
Even if I take that step, there's always going to be that fear. It's just what do I do with it when it comes in? So that's the noise that I could also relate to with what you said, but also the fear. in
Yeah.
myself.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing both the noise and the solution, because that's pretty much our message then. So you kind of skipped through a few of my notes
So
here
we're
by
done?
giving us the
Wow, we're
solution.
done?
So I
That's
guess
it.
we're done here.
Great job.
Trust God with more of that. Here we go. Kidding. But those, I think, our online guests, they probably can relate to a lot of that, right? The people pleasing. I know I relate to that. Also, the fears and how do we kind of battle those things. And what I heard is trusting, like what is true about us, what
Yeah.
God says is true about us. So That's pretty cool. It wasn't in my notes, but I love that, so thank you. I am curious, for a lot of us who find ourselves leaders, do you think that the weight of the noise is more than the average person, or is it something that we're just more aware of? Or is there a temptation? I'm throwing so much at you.
Yeah,
right
go
now.
ahead.
A lack of awareness of all the noise in our life because there might be so much of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a good question. I like the way you worded it with the weight. I don't believe that in virtue of being a leader, the noise in your life is more, because you could define leader a whole host of different ways.
Yeah.
I think we're going to look at Elijah and the noise in his life.
Yeah.
So there's kind of there's an allusion to that. But I think that everybody has their own. I've heard it said somebody's hardest day of their life is their hardest day of their life. So whether it would have been hard for you or not doesn't matter, because it's all pretty much relative. And so maybe somebody's noise right now is newborn noise.
Yeah.
Right, to keep the kid conversation going. Well, and I'm not there anymore, but that's a tough. I don't like crying. We already talked about it, and that's all newborns do when they need something is they cry. But at the same time, somebody's noise right now could be that they're losing a loved one. Somebody's noise could be that they're in high school and they got an exam coming up, and they're so overwhelmed with stress. And so, no, I don't think that there's a different type of or different weightiness to the noise. I just think that we respond differently. So, or it could be a different noise. So, if you are, for instance, somebody who I know a lot of people that work at Jeep. I know a few people at Oregon that work at Jeep. Their noise is going to look different than mine. If they're a line worker, it's just going to be different. They've got to get certain things done in a certain amount of time. It could be monotonous. There could be a strike coming, and they wouldn't call themselves leaders per se, but that's a different type of noise than what I'm doing. I don't have that type of pressure. Like, I got people I report to, but my noise in my life as a leader in my organization, it just feels like the people pleasing kind of comes with that, because people and their perceptions of us matter here.
Yeah.
So I would say no. I don't think it's more or I think it could be different, but it's all stage of life and where you're at. So no, that's my answer.
Yeah, thanks.
I would agree.
Perfect.
I would 100% agree.
Yes.
I don't really know if I have anything great to add to that. I mean, it made me think of, especially with coming up, but we have the Global Leadership Summit coming up in August.
Yeah.
And one of the things, the big line is that leadership is influence, and everybody has influence. And I love the way that you just tied in, really, everybody does, whether you're a stay-at-home mom, you're a factory worker at Jeep, or you're a pastor, or a leader, a business owner, or whatever that looks like, a student, anywhere where you're at, an athlete, like, we all have influence and we all have noise. It's just seasonal. It depends. It could be depending on, like, if you're stepping into something big like that, like you just mentioned, happening in your life, maybe the noise volume goes up a little bit more in that area. It could be when we're coasting through life where things seem good and maybe the noise volume's a little bit low. It's a great question, but I don't think I have really anything else to add to that.
Well, I think these are great answers. And I think you point out something that, from my experience, folks, I think, are often tempted because we work at a church, we're pastors, that we are this, I don't know, that we're up here with our awareness level of whatever, but we're like everyone else. We're normal. We have our own fears, the things that distract us from God, from our purpose, that we are also fighting. So we're all on the same, I would say, page with these things, right?
100%.
Just looks different depending on your season of life or what you're doing.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
But you all deal with it. We all deal with it.
Yeah. Speaking of seasons, have there been seasons where the noise was so loud that it changed how you saw God or your purpose?
Yeah, the first one, I think I've shared this. I think what I've shared before a little bit ago was during COVID, and when everything shut down. We went online. We had to bend the curve for 2 weeks. The 2-week curve ended up being months, and then even years. I didn't realize, but for me, I think what I ended up slipping into was this, like, silent little depression that took place, where isolation, and I started questioning a bunch of things, specifically about my role at the church as a pastor. Like, is this really where I should be? And I remember at that time, somebody approached me about a new position, a job, working in insurance, actually. He goes, "Hey, man, I will pay you a great salary. You come on, you join me." And it was very enticing for me. I was like, man, is this like my out of, like, where I've been struggling with? And so, like, it And so I was just back and forth praying and trying to figure out, and I was talking to people about it. Didn't really exactly know where necessarily maybe God was leading in that moment. And it was very enticing. So like what happened, it was just more noise that came through.
okay.
Really is what it was. Because then I'm just like in this moment of like not really figuring out what the heck is going on with me, thinking that a temporary solution like leaving a position to another position is going to fix this, which really just created more noise and confusion in my life and figuring out, trying to discern exactly where God was leading.
Yeah.
And honestly, man, just pursuing through him and being comfortable for, I think, where God was leading. So there was fears involved, and there was, well, what about this and what about that? It's uncertain times. It's COVID. Like, there's just certain things that are going on. Whatever. And I ended up just getting help. God spoke through my wife in a way, I believe, and like it hit me to a core. It was nothing profound she said. It was just in the moment she said it. And I was just like, wow, man, that is powerful. You're right. I need to get help. So sought that out through outside sources with working with somebody and working with, just praying to God and figuring out and being comfortable with where I'm at. And honestly, I have peace after that. It gave me some peace. And I'm still working through some of those things too. It wasn't like it was a fix overnight, but definitely questioned my purpose, my position, my place, even as a dad, as a new father at the time, and pastor at the time, a leader, and just figuring out what the heck was really going on. So
Yeah. And that's
that was
great.
a moment.
And you bring something up that I feel like when we are afraid or when fear takes over, we tend to isolate ourselves. And it can be something as easy as asking for help, like to those closest to us.
Yeah.
It's so hard, but I don't know. It's also, we can't grow in isolation either. So that's awesome. What about you, Andy?
Yeah, similar answer, I guess. Because the question was, have you ever had so much noise that you're kind of confused about your purpose or what God's
or
calling?
lost sight of that?
Yeah, probably when we were our fourth kid, Parker, we adopted him. Was a family adoption. My cousin's biological son. We adopted him from birth, from the hospital in Myrtle Beach, and this was in 2023, and just was a stressful time. It was very quick. She decided at 6 months pregnancy that she was not going to keep her baby, so we had a few months to decide, and life was stressful at that point. The Oregon campus was kind of in this weird in-between stage, and things weren't going exactly where you want them to go, and life was extremely hectic. And then it was coming back from that, and then our kids just kept getting sick, and so it was just like sickness after sickness after sickness. And I remember November of 2023 during At the Movies, ironically enough, I broke down because I said I hate crying. I got up to do announcements, the send-off of the one of the services, and it was during the movie Instant Family with Mark Wahlberg, where they adopt kids. And my wife had not been to church in a month-ish. I just felt like I was working a lot and trying to manage everything, and nothing seemed to be working. So I'm saying, like, was this the right decision? All the stuff was creeping in, and it was the same thing. I broke down, and then it was Ben Snyder, who was randomly visiting Oregon that weekend, randomly in quotes. And he just put his arm around my shoulder. He's like, "Hey, I get it, buddy." I said, "I'm really tired." And he's just like, I get it. And then it was a couple days later, we met, and he's like, "I think you should ask for help. I think you should go see somebody." And so I did. And it was like, just to be able to be raw and vulnerable and honest and be like, "Hey, I'm dealing with," and I wouldn't use this language at the time, but it was like, I'm dealing with a lot of noise in my life.
Yeah.
And it was self-doubt, and it was like not trusting that God was actually going to bring me through this and that everything was going to be okay and all that stuff. And now I think I have the tools based on just a year. I think it was a year of meeting with a guy. I have the tools to be able to deal with some of the things that were really holding me back from living in freedom. So yeah, similar answer.
That's great.
Kind of wild. We did not coordinate that at all.
Not at all.
Yeah. No.
This is great. Look at us.
Yeah, it's kinda
Look
cool.
at us.
Kind of cool.
We're talking about the noise, all the noise that's around us, and that is part of this series, What is God Teaching Me? So last week, Ben talked about growing our notice, right? Because God is speaking. It's being aware, right? Growing our notice that he is speaking. And so today we're talking about the noise and how do we quiet the noise. And we're going to use a story out of the Old Testament. We're going to use the story of Elijah. And if you're not familiar with Elijah, I'm going to have Andy, but not just Andy. I want Professor Andy to give us a recap of what happened with Elijah on Mount Carmel before we get into kind of the story for today. Now, for those of you who have been at Cedar Creek for a while, Professor Andy, this is what is this? This is a personality that we have seen at times come out.
Yeah, I started a few years ago.
Okay.
I was a professor on camera.
Yes.
And it was a funny little bit that we did. You can look it up. I don't know why. I don't know why it happened. I didn't even have a mustache at the time, so it didn't really make a lot of sense.
You didn't. You had a cool little coat, I think.
I did. I wore a coat. I had weird looking hair one video. It was a whole thing.
Did you have a beard?
Yeah.
Had a beard. Okay.
We should bring it back with the mustache.
I don't disagree with that at all.
Well, let's recap what happened with Elijah on Mount Carmel. There was a battle of sorts.
Yeah, I would encourage you, if you haven't read through the Elijah narratives in 1 Kings, he's awesome. I mean, he's just a cool dude. He does a lot of great stuff, lots of miracles. But anyway, you get to a point where Elijah is living in Israel under King Ahab. And King Ahab is an evil, wicked, very evil king who married a lady named Jezebel, who was also very wicked and very evil. The Bible describes her as one of the most evil people, and he's one of the worst kings you could ever be under. And part of the reason why they described him that way is because Jezebel had convinced the king of Israel, God's chosen people, God's chosen nation, to worship the false god Baal. And then, and Baal had people doing all kinds of crazy stuff, like sacrificing their children, killing each other, all kinds of weird, nasty stuff. And so then all of a sudden the people are giving themselves over to this, and Elijah's called by God to speak truth and direct them back to God. And so one of the things that he does is he challenges the prophets of Baal directly, and that's the Mount Carmel scene that Brian's talking about. So they go onto this mountaintop basically, and he says, hey, you know what, Israel, you need to choose. You can't be a worshiper of Baal and also Yahweh. You have to pick one. Choose one or the other. You cannot love God and do the things that Baal is telling you to do and worshiping him as well. So he says, call the 450 prophets of Baal to the top of the mountain. Now, mind you, Elijah, just before, I don't know, it was a year or two before this, I can't remember the timeline, he actually, because God told him to, prophesy that there would be a drought in all the lands. And so then there was no rain. People are suffering. It's just not good under the reign and rule of Ahab. So in the middle of this drought where nobody has any water, everybody's suffering, he calls the prophets of Baal and he said, hey, here's what we're going to do. And I want the people to watch this. He says, basically, and this is my version, I want you to get a bull. I'll get a bull. We're going to sacrifice this bull to our respective gods. And we're going to see which God is actually real and is legit. How are we going to know? Because the God who is real, whether it's Baal or Yahweh, will catch up in this bull, will burn it up with flames. So then he says, you guys can go first. And there's this whole scene where they sacrifice the bull, they put it on the altar, and they're crying out to Baal, and nothing's happening. And Elijah starts to mock them. He says, where is Baal? Is he out relieving himself? Like, is he going to the bathroom right now? Did he take a potty break? Like, it's intense.
My kids love this
Elijah
story.
is intense. It's a great story. Mm-hmm. And then nothing happens. They do all these kind of wicked, crazy things to evoke this God to do something, and nothing happens. And then Elijah, in the middle of a drought, says, hey, bring me 4 pitchers of, like, big pitchers of water. And I can't remember the size comparison, what we would call it today, but it's a lot of water. He says, give me 4 pitchers, and he pours it on he says, pour it on the bull. And everybody's like, probably thinking, like, right now, in the middle of a drought, like all that? Pours it on, he says, do it again. And they do it again. And then he says, do it again. And they pour it on again. And then he calls on the God of Israel, and the God of Israel, with flames, just sucks up all the water and all the bull. And it was just like, that's my God. He was looking at the people saying, I told you to choose. You can pick the one that makes you do all these nasty, wicked things. You can pick the one who loves you and will show up for you and will be there for you and have your corner and all that stuff. And so that it ends with basically then they kill off all the prophets of Baal.
No big deal on that one. Yeah,
so
that's great.
You can read that. It's pretty intense.
It's amazing. I've always pictured when I read that story, the movie Independence Day. Have you seen it?
Yeah. Will Smith.
With Will Smith, yep.
Yeah.
And the ship comes over the White House, and then, right? That's how I've always pictured God's flames, bull,
That's
everything. So that happens, right? But what happens with Elijah after that? Seth, you mentioned some of this part that you caught, that you enjoyed. Once this whole scene happened, what did Elijah do?
Speaking of, in Independence Day, Will Smith had a pretty sweet mustache.
Oh, he did have a nice mustache.
He did.
Do you think Elijah had a mustache? Just a mustache?
I don't think so.
No. Okay.
No. Think he had a beard?
Absolutely.
Probably.
Yeah.
So Elijah, with his beard and mustache, what happened afterwards? Something you caught that?
Well, afterwards, so then everybody worshiped God, Yahweh, and they went and turned their hearts, minds, attention, whatever to them. Elijah sends them off, Ahab, and says, take your chariots and go to Jezreel. And then Elijah calls his servant to go up to the top of Mount Carmel to look out to the Mediterranean Sea, just to take a look to see if anything was coming. Called him up to do that. On the 7th time of him going up onto the mountain, he looked out and he saw a small storm cloud forming. This is after that 1 to 3 years, whatever it was, of a drought that they had of no rain or anything. And so Elijah says to his servant, go tell Ahab, gather all of his chariots, right? He's a king, so he had chariots, he had everything, and head to the town, the city Jezreel. And so the servant ran, told Ahab, he got on his chariots, Ahab runs. And then the last verse of chapter 18 that we read, it says that the Spirit of the Lord came upon Elijah, and he tucks his cloak into his belt and then runs to Jezreel and beats Ahab, essentially, to the gates of Jezreel. So I'm like, sitting here thinking, I'm like, what? That stood out to me. I was like, this is wild. Because the way I think, I don't know, my son's into Sonic right now, the Hedgehog. So I go, does he just like a wilderness man? You know, this bearded like dude that eats locusts and things? Like, did he know shortcuts through like the mountains so he beat him that way? Or like, did he get this Super Sonic the Hedgehog speed and zoom past
It's the best.
Ahab to Jezreel? It's like, phew, you know, it's like
collecting rings along the way.
Yeah,
Collecting.
or like for those cartoon lovers as well, like you know, it's like the beep beep guy from Roadrunner.
Yes.
Yeah, it was like
Flash.
that. It's like, Flash. You know, so
Look at us. This is
Pretty
great.
cool.
Any more
That's
fast
fun.
guys?
just wild.
I'm pretty fast.
Yeah.
All right,
Well, yeah, whatever.
maybe we should race. Let's race.
do it
I can't.
afterwards.
I'll race after this.
All right, so that's where we pick up our story today, and I'm going to read this from the Holy Scriptures, okay? Because I love reading out loud. Here,
love
I
it.
do it
It's
all the
great.
time, so I'm going to do this.
Do you?
So I do.
Okay.
Yes. So 1 Kings chapter 19. You can follow along if you want at home. If you have your own Bibles, verses 1 through 3. We're going to start here. Here we go. I could do a voice if you want. I won't do voices. That's fine. When Ahab got home, he told Jezebel everything Elijah had done, including the way he had killed all the prophets of Baal. So Jezebel sent this message to Elijah: "May the gods strike me and even kill me if by this time tomorrow I have not killed you just as you killed them." Verse 3, Elijah was afraid and fled for his life. He went to Beersheba. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Professor Andy? Sounds great.
really good.
A town in Judah, and he left his servant there. So Elijah, he is scared. Rightfully so, right? And we can say that fear potentially distracted him from the purpose God had for him. So my question, and you kind of answered this, Seth, earlier with COVID and during that season, but has there been a time where fear distracted you from your purpose? And I know, Seth, you kind of answered that. I don't know if you have a different answer. If Andy, you've got one where fear has distracted you, pulled you away from your purpose.
Yeah, we were afraid to. I was afraid to adopt Parker.
Yeah.
We just had our 3rd kid. We were only planning on having 2 because my wife got sick after our 2nd kid. So then when we planned on having our 3rd, we had him, and then it was shortly thereafter. It's like, do you want a 4th? And I'm like, no. And it's like, adoption's difficult. It's hard. But when I'll keep the story short, I was driving home one day from work. I called Kayla. I told her, I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. We hadn't committed to anything yet. And she just said, and I'm not going to say all the words that she said, but essentially in a nutshell, she was like, this is what God wants from us. If we don't, who will?
Yeah.
God wants us. God, and I thank God for Caleb, because otherwise I wouldn't have Parker in my life, and he's a joy. So yeah, fear of like the financial aspect of it and the stress and all that stuff would have kept me from living out the purpose God had for me in that season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you have something new that came to your
No,
mind.
I think I was just thinking of the story of Elijah, like what you recapped and then what you just read. Like he was just a part of some insanely wild things that he saw God do tangibly.
Yeah.
Because he saw it, but he also believed it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, he raised a kid from the dead before that scene that we talked
raised a
about.
kid from the dead. He prayed that there would be a drought within the whole nation of Israel.
Yeah.
It happened. I mean, called up thousands of people onto a mountaintop where you see this, God showing up and burning the bowl up and sucking up who was soaked. Like it's just, so he was, and then, got supersonic speed or whatever happened and just zoomed to Jezreel, or he just had the endurance. I don't know. Whatever. I'm still like wrapped up
pretty
on
impressed.
that one. It's impressive. It's very impressive. But it's like, so he just had these like moments back to back to back of like God showing up in some wild, wild ways.
Yeah.
And then just how quickly it turns. Because his life is threatened by Jezebel.
Yeah.
Who's powerful.
Who's powerful.
And evil.
Who's second in
Yeah.
command, or whatever you want to say. I mean,
Yeah.
she's the first lady, to Ahab. She's the
when
wife.
you read it, you see that Jezebel's in
She's in
control.
charge.
Yeah, Ahab does whatever she tells him to.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
That's
and it's
in
like,
our house
that's
as
good.
well.
Yeah, I didn't.
Anyway,
I
tell my
didn't say
kids,
anything wrong with it.
like, mom's in charge, but I act like I'm in charge, but we all know mom's in charge.
That's great.
Anyway.
Great. And so I was just, I don't know. I think I was just like, and it's easy for me to be like, gosh, you were just a part of all of these things. And then like, you allowed something like this to really just like derail you. It's like, I do that too.
Yeah.
Not just through COVID. I mean, even small things.
Yeah.
Like, it could be an area where God has trusted me just to maybe give a little bit more, or to tithe on maybe a gift, or it could be going out and even doing an announcement. I mean, I'm preparing for this message this weekend. Like, there's a fear that is involved too of gosh, it's like trying to, I wouldn't say it now, but now with this, like, it's another noise in my life that's trying to distract me from maybe what God is pushing me towards or giving me an opportunity towards. And it's like, so it's very easy to be like, Elijah, like, what's wrong? But it's like, it happens in me too.
Yep.
And it's not just that COVID story. Like, it could be a daily thing.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, of acting on something or having a conversation with somebody, or whatever that looks like, or a step that God's prompted me to take, or just a step that I know I need to take. I just don't want to do it because of fear.
Yeah.
Because I don't trust.
Yeah. And the answer could be something very simple as well. And we'll see this because I'm going to keep reading.
There we
here.
go.
See what
I
I'm
like
doing here?
that. That was good.
So if you're following along again here, we're going to see some of these potentially simple answers. 1 Kings chapter 19. We're going verses 4 through 9. Here we go. Where is verse 4? Elijah, then he went on alone into the wilderness, traveling all day. He sat down under a solitary broom tree and prayed that he might die. I have had enough, Lord, he said. Take my life, for I am no better than my ancestors who have already died. And then he lay down and he slept under the broom tree. But as he was sleeping, an angel touched him and told him, get up and eat. He looked around, and there beside his head was some bread baked on hot stones and a jar of water. So he ate and drank and lay down again. Verse 7, then the angel of the Lord came again and touched him and said, get up and eat some more, or the journey ahead will be too much for you. So he got up and ate and drank, and the food gave him enough strength to travel 40 days and 40 nights to Mount Sinai, the mountain of God. And there he came to a cave where he spent the night. So we see two very practical ways that helped nourish, I'll say, Elijah. Pop quiz. What were those two ways, gentlemen, that he was nourished? Two ways.
Snack and a nap.
Boom!
It's good stuff.
Got it.
Snack and a nap.
good
Very
stuff.
practical. And I think, we see this in our kids. They come home. They're hangry. They're upset.
Yeah.
They're yelling. They're screaming. And it could be something as simple as, have you had a snack? Like, have you eaten something?
Yeah.
Right? Have you, did you get enough sleep?
Yep.
I think.
We always say it's early bedtime tonight.
Early
it's gonna
bedtime
be
for
early
you.
bedtime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Same here.
Yeah, because you know.
Say the same thing.
So why something so basic? Why does this happen to be an afterthought for some of us?
So you asked that we were talking through this earlier, and I didn't know, but it just kind of hit me. It's because they're so normal, and we don't expect God to work through the normal. We're waiting, and we're going to get into that here in a second, but we're waiting for something big. But it's like, no, God created food to sustain you, to nourish you. God also made us, which doesn't make a ton of sense if you think about like like an evolutionary perspective. Sleeping is a very vulnerable thing to do, but God made us to then sleep, to take time away from producing, to relax, to rest. And so snack and a nap, they're so normal, so we don't see those as important things or that things that God wants us to do to be prepared.
Yes.
That's what I think.
Yeah. My wife, she's a dietitian, so this is something that she is constantly reinforcing in our home is, have you had enough to eat? Have you had enough nutrition, all those things, enough rest so that we can function at our best,
That is good.
right?
That's good.
So we see Elijah. He's now nourished. He's got food. He's got water. He's ready to go.
Let's go.
All right. So God sends him to this mountain. And I'm going to keep going here in 1 Kings chapter 19. We're going to read verse 11. Well, first, God says to him in verse, 9. What are you doing here, Elijah? And I'll pick up here at 11. God says, go out and stand before me on the mountain. And as Elijah stood there, the Lord passed by, and a mighty windstorm hit the mountain. It was such a terrible blast that the rocks were torn loose, but the Lord was not in the wind. Weird. After the wind, there was an earthquake. Crazy, by the way, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. Let's keep going. And after the earthquake, there was a fire. Do you think God was there? No, he wasn't there either. He was not in the fire. And after the fire, it's underlined here. Is this your Bible that I'm using?
Yeah.
Bruh. And after the fire, there was the sound of a gentle whisper. Often, for me at least, I will look for God's voice in the big, in the signs, in the wonders. But we see here in this story that often it comes in the still small whisper.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe we need to turn down the volume to hear God's voice, to hear that whisper. And we also see this, we're not going to have time to go into the scriptures, but we see Jesus do this. Oftentimes he goes to a solitary place, quiet when he's talking with God. And so for all of our online folks who are watching us, what is some practical advice? What are some rhythms or practices that you have found helpful to kind of turn down the volume, to quiet the noise?
That's good.
You can go first.
First one, I would just say getting into like a reading plan of some sort, and if it's with a group of people as well, the Bible app, our daily is a great place to do it as well. Our CedarCreek app, and you can set reminders.
Yeah.
And you can do it to where you get a push notification on your smartphone. And I need those. I don't know about anybody else, but I definitely need those reminders. And those have been very helpful. So whether it is a 5-minute space, or if it's a 20-minute space of just being able to spend some quality time with God, reading, digesting, bringing some type of material into my brain to be focused on him and what is he really trying to slow it down, quiet the noise, and what is he trying to really teach me, or what do I need to receive from this from him? So
It's good. Yeah, I think another short practical one is it's two things I try to do is if you're going to hear from him, especially if I'm reading, which is where I try to hear from him. It's the easiest way, I think, to hear from God because it is his word. Obviously, the Holy Spirit can prompt you and all that stuff, and we're going to talk about that in a few weeks as well. But I try to not have if I have my phone near me, I have it on Do Not Disturb because I have a reading plan on my phone too. I read out of my Bible, but I also use a reading plan there. And the second thing is have a box for the noise. So if I have a thought that comes in that's distracting me, I just write it down, just set it aside. Put it on a piece of paper, put a note in my phone real quick. Because what I'll think of, noise could be like tasks I have to do, things I forgot to do last night, things I want to do today, or oh my gosh, whatever. So I just write it down, put that noise in a box, and I can address it when I'm done. Because right now I want to be present. Right now I want to encounter God through His Word, and so I try to create a box. I put it sticky note in my phone, whatever it is. And also I think too, I want to encourage everybody: if you're distracted when you're praying, when you're reading, that's not bad. It's not bad. In fact, I've heard one author say that it's a gift from God, that he's kind of letting you know, like, hey, he's allowing you to see, like, hey, here's some of your priorities that when you're trying to encounter me, these are things that are butting up against that. They're not bad, but I'm letting you know where your heart's at right now, and I'm letting you see that. So don't be negative, like, I can't, I'm so distracted. 3 of us are pastors here. You ask any of the pastors that you might elevate and put on some sort of pedestal, do you get distracted when you pray?
All the time.
of course.
Yes. When you read your Bible.
Yes.
Of course.
Yes, and you do too. And it's okay. That's part of being human, and God gave us a brain that works in crazy ways. And so don't view those things as negative, but view those as blessings that God is like, here's where your heart's drawn right now. Put it in that box, set it aside, and continue to press in toward God. That's a way that I've found to quiet the noise when I'm trying to encounter Him.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And I hope that this conversation was helpful for you as you are learning how to quiet the noise, how to hear God's voice, and continue staying with us through the series as we'll continue to look at different ways where we can see how God is teaching. So gentlemen, I appreciate you and the time that you've spent with me in talking about this. And good luck with everything else you got going on kind of this weekend. Because again, this is a recorded message, so we'll edit it later. Anyway, see you later, friends. Thank you.
See you. Thanks, Brian.